In today's video, I want to share with you a bit of my personal journey with acne that ultimately led me to discover what was really going on with my hormones, and also how I finally managed to lower my high cortisol, lose belly fat, and enjoy variety of foods without getting bloated or experiencing those skin flare-ups. So since I was 16, my skin was really terrible, and I'm not gonna lie, for most of the part I really hated it. I didn't like that my skin was not smooth or that I couldn't leave the house without makeup, especially during summer or when going to the gym, or even didn't feel comfortable when I was going on dates. And as you can probably imagine, I tried all the creams, gels, beauty treatments, and nothing really worked. But the first time my skin actually started to improve was when I went for a trip to Sri Lanka. That time it didn't make much sense to me, but now I know why, and also I will explain in a second. It had nothing to do with just being relaxed on holiday, but more with the inflammation. But anyway, after I came back home, my skin flared up back to normal. So I carried on like that for like another couple of years until in 2018, I went to study naturopathic nutrition and was getting more into like functional medicine. And that was truly eye-opening because I started understanding how actually our body works. And that gave me also hope that I can actually do something about my hormones, my acne, and all other health issues I was experiencing. So I cut dairy, I improved my insulin from 10 to 3.5. And I also balanced my estrogen, progesterone. Low progesterone has been always issue for me. And insulin also plays a huge role if it comes to like hormonal balance and also your immune system, which means how your body reacts to a certain foods. Interesting thing, when I did my blood test, it came up as 10, so it was within the normal lab range. But actually the optimal range according to functional medicine is way lower, between around 3 and 5. So that all of course helped me a lot. My skin started to clear up nicely, but didn't clear up fully, and also I was still experiencing flare-ups. And because that time I was very much into nutrition, I was like, it has to do something with food. A little spoiler, it had nothing to do with the food really. But anyway, I started cutting gluten, more foods, to the point that I was suspecting that olives trigger my acne, or like some small silly foods. But the truth is, the food is usually not the problem, it's your gut and your immune system that reacts to certain foods if you have leaky gut or gut dysbiosis, broadly speaking, of course. So I did the gut test. I corrected whatever came up on the gut test, but guess what? Despite that, again, same thing, flare-ups up and down, same thing I was experiencing before. So I have to say I was really close to giving up and just accepting I have to live with acne, my hormone imbalances and everything else. But in the meantime, I went to Cape Town, and guess what? My skin started clearing up again. And on the top of that, also for the first time in my life, I didn't have painful heavy periods. That was something I struggled with also. But anyway, that was the moment I started connecting the dots, and what I was doing differently in Sri Lanka and in Cape Town comparing to my other holiday trips. I was spending a lot of time in the water. That time I was learning to surf, and that means I was unconsciously grounding myself. Grounding is one of the most powerful anti-inflammatories. So of course that was not like helping sort out the root cause, but it was helping my body basically to heal. Inflammation overall is one of the biggest, I would say, underlying mechanism behind most of the health conditions, hormone imbalances, and acne as well. So inflammation, I knew that's something I definitely need to focus. However, again, I couldn't really figure out where the inflammation was coming from, because that time I was already eating healthy, no gluten, no dairy. I did test for heavy metals, also no parasites or any other like gut pathogens that could be driving that inflammation. But what came up at some point was high cortisol. And what is interesting, when I was doing blood tests earlier to test for like cortisol and other markers, my cortisol kept coming back normal. But when I did the Dutch test, what turned out, my free cortisol came high and my metabolized cortisol came low. And the thing is, the blood test only shows you like the total amount of your cortisol. It doesn't show you the breakdown of the free cortisol, which is the one that makes, I would say, the most damage if it stays elevated for a prolonged period of time, which was in my case. And that was because my body was not able to metabolize that cortisol effectively. And that time I didn't really feel stressed. Now I know I was mostly in a fight or flight mode, but that time I thought I'm just busy or just the way I am. But what I observed, my skin was flaring up when there was cold weather or I felt cold, when I over-exercise or push myself at the gym too much, and also when I was doing home trips. My parents were laughing that I'm allergic to them. Obviously, I was not, but my nervous system was reacting certain way. And what those three things basically have in common is your nervous system activation. Your nervous system will be activated in response to any stressor, physical stressor or emotional stressor. And that means in response to stress, your body will release cortisol that can directly contribute to accumulation of more belly fat. But also cortisol release will activate your immune system, because again, our body don't see difference between, I would say, physical danger like the virus, parasite, or actual threat, or the danger created by our thoughts or what's been embedded in our nervous system that our mind perceives as a danger. And then the immune activation creates inflammation. And again, short term, no problem. It's a healthy response, healthy mechanism. The problem starts when that response became chronic and it doesn't go away. And then it will impact your gut, contributing to bloating, food intolerances I mentioned, hormone imbalances as well, and painful periods. Painful periods, of course, are linked with estrogen-progesterone balance, but the pain women experience is actually linked with inflammatory cytokine, and that's your immune system and your gut. Also, what else was happening in my case with nervous system cortisol, it was stealing my thyroid hormones. And thyroid, I call it like the CEO of our body that controls your metabolism and also fat loss. So the moment I work on my nervous system, I was able to fix my high cortisol, sort out my thyroid, lose belly fat, get rid of bloating and painful periods as well. And I will be honest, the first time I heard about like nervous system, it sounded a bit to me like the woo thing. But the more I was getting into inner work, trauma, understanding mind, it started to make so much sense. And honestly, it was one of the biggest factors that kept messing with my health, my hormones, all the symptoms I was experiencing, despite eating healthy, despite taking supplements, and seemingly doing all the right things. So here is what I've done to calm my nervous system. To calm your nervous system, you really need to understand this concept of human needs and how our nervous system reacts. We as humans have three basic needs: to be loved or have that sense of belonging, to feel safe, of course, like physically, but mostly emotionally, and also to be authentic self. In my case, for example, being authentic self was like the biggest part. And if any of those needs is compromised or not met, that will activate that nervous system, release cortisol, and lead to all the cascade I explained earlier. So to give you an example, I had, for example, perfect childhood, amazing, loving, caring parents, but my mind created that interpretation of my mom's love and care as a threat to my identity. And I know it may sound crazy, but when I was just born, I got seriously sick, and naturally my mom became very worried about me, overprotective, and wanted to make sure that I'm okay and fine and healthy. So whatever she was doing was for my best, but every time she wanted to help me or do something for me, from default my automatic response was like, no, I don't want it, I don't need it, even though deep down I actually want it. I was just saying no for the sake of it. But because of the belief and the interpretation I was carrying from the early childhood, situations like this were activating my nervous system because it was perceived as a danger to one of the core human needs. Similar situations were showing up also in relationships or at work. Every time I felt I cannot be fully myself, my system was getting activated. And again, it's a fine line because we cannot be fully always ourselves. But again, it's important to understand those situations and how our body reacts. Because once you understand this, you can change that. So once you change that interpretation of situation or people around you, you can really calm down your nervous system. And by calming down your nervous system, you create favorable environment for your body to heal and return to balance. And if you want to learn more about how to turn off those stress alarms in your nervous system, watch this video next.